Hello and welcome back. In this video, we are going to talk about Django forms. Django forms simplify collecting and validating user data through an easy-to-use framework. They automatically generate HTML forms and handle the conversion and validation of data. For example, forms are very useful for tasks like collecting data for models, user input validation, or filtering content. And some of the key features of Django forms is validation. So forms automatically validate user input based on specified rules and data types. Forms handle CSRF tokens or cross-site request forgery. This is to prevent malicious submissions of forms. Also reuse. So you can define a form once and reuse it across views. And this in fact reduces redundant code. And finally, customization. To personalize your form, you can create custom fields, widgets, and error messages. This is Django official documentation for working with forms. And I highly recommend that you read this webpage. It's very important. It's going to give you a lot of information on how to work with Django forms. But I'm going to tell you everything about this webpage in this video. So let's start from the top. Forms are very essential for any interactive web application, as we mentioned. And in fact, Django is generous enough to provide us with robust tools and libraries to create, handle, and process forms. And if you'll scroll down here below, you will find that the page is talking about HTML forms. So you need to know three things in HTML forms. The first thing is the structure. So HTML forms are a collection of elements within form tags, as you can see here. These tags enable the users to input data and send it to the server. The second thing you need to be aware of is elements. Basic elements include text inputs and checkboxes, and more complex interactions, in fact, like date pickers, we can use JavaScript and CSS. And last but not least, attributes. So forms basically must specify two things: a target URL, which is the action attribute, and also the HTTP method. Whatever the method is, get, post, it doesn't matter. But the most important thing is you must have those two things: the target URL and your HTTP method. When it comes to Django's role in forms, you need to know that Django simplifies form handling by three things. The first thing is data preparation, which is done by restructuring data for rendering. Also creating HTML forms, and this involves generating HTML for forms. And finally, processing data, and this includes handling and validating the submitted data. I know all of that sounds theoretical to you, but it's very important to understand these principles before we go ahead and start coding our Django form. Django automates much of the form handling process, which makes it very easier and more secure than writing custom code. And to show you all of that, let's go ahead and start coding a simple Django form to understand and appreciate how easy it is to create forms in Django. Alright guys, so I'm inside a folder called Lesson 9 Django Forms. And as always, the first thing we need to do in any Django application we have is to register this application inside our installed apps list. So this is the forms project, and our application is called form_app. So I'm going to just type this inside single quotes, form_app. Then I will go to my application and I will create urls.py file, hit enter. Then I will go back to the urls.py, which is in our project, and I'm going to add a path here. And this path is going to be on an empty route, which is empty strings. Be careful, do not do like that. That's going to be an error. So you need to leave empty strings like that, okay? Also, I want to redirect that to include inside my application, inside my urls.py file. All right, so that's going to be the application, which is form_app.urls. All right, and also I will need to add include as always. This is awesome. Now let's go ahead to our form_application and create a file called forms.py. This is the main file where we're going to create our form. So the first thing you need to do in your forms.py file is to import the forms module from Django to access form classes and fields. And as I told you, Django is generous enough to give us those out-of-the-box tools and utilities in order to develop our application rapidly. I'm going to import from Django. I will import the forms module or library. So you can use the word module and library interchangeably, that doesn't matter. So this forms module here has a lot of classes and fields that we're going to utilize later. Next, I want to create a class. This class, I'm going to call it contact form. So this is to define this contact form class, which is going to inherit from forms.form. And forms.form is the base class for all of the regular forms in Django. Next, I want to define a name field. And the name field is going to have a type of character field. So I'm going to use forms again, and I'm going to have character field. And the character field, I'm going to set the maximum length for it as 100 characters, which simply means that this maximum length is going to ensure that the input cannot exceed 100 characters. You can define the maximum length as you see fit. Also, I want to define an email field. And this email field is going to have a type of email field, which is simply going to automatically validate that the input is a valid email address format. And as you may have guessed it, this is to collect the user's email. So for instance, if you will miss the @ sign, that's going to give you an error and tells you that this is not a valid email address. Next, I want to define a message field. And the message field is going to have a type of character field. So forms.character field. But this time I will have a widget, and that's going to be equal to forms.textArea. And this is simply will allow the users to write a longer message in a multi-line text box. This is as far as the fields are concerned. Now I want to define a method that's going to handle the sending of an email once the form is validated. So this method, I'm going to call it sendEmail, which takes self, of course, and self here pertains to the self object, the self message that we're going to send. And in practice, of course, you would implement the actual email sending logic here. So I'm going simply to print, and I'm going to format this in string format, and I will say something like sending email from whatever self.cleaned data, and that's going to have here sub email. Then we'll type with message and self here dot clean data again, sub message, and that's basically it. This is our message that we want to print. And the clean data in both cases, whether the email or the message, means that this data contains all validated input data from the form. This print statement again is going to simulate the email being sent. Now we have our form out of the way, let's go ahead and start writing our urls.py file. So naturally, in your application, we don't have a urls.py by default. So every time we need to create it manually. And the first thing that I want to do inside urls.py is to just import the path function to define the URL patterns. So I'm gonna say from django.urls, I want to import the path. Also, I want to import the views. We haven't created the views yet, so maybe it's a good idea to go and start by creating the views first. So you see this first code line tells you from django.shortcuts import render. And the whole code line says that I want to import the required utilities from Django's shortcut module. For now we have render, but I'm going to add another method that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But simply the render method, as you have seen with me the last lesson, is to return HTML responses by rendering templates. Alright, we're going to leave that for now. Also, I want to import from the current directory the forms. I want to import the contact form class. And I think I have called this forms.py. This is not accurate because that's form only. Django has identified that this contact form is indeed a class that's included in form.py. All right, let's shut the Explorer one more time and let's move on. The next thing that I want to do is I want to create some functions. The first page is going to be a home page. This home page is going to have two elements, a logo and a button. When you will click the button, you will enter this form. You will enter the form, you will fill the form, you will hit submit, and again you will be redirected to a third page. So basically we'll have three pages, a home page, a contact page, and success page. So we're going to be building 3 different HTML files. This was a quick walkthrough on how we're going to structure our form. But for now, I want to create this function that's going to be called home_view. And naturally, that's going to take the HTTP request, and the request is going to be naturally a GET request. Once again, if you're not going to define your request, by default, the HTTP request is going to be GET. And that's not only in Django, but in any other framework or programming language in general. So what I want to do is to render, and by now I hope that you remember that the render method takes 2 parameters, the request and the HTML template. So the request is going to be whatever the request is, and the template name or the HTML template is going to be, we're going to create a folder here. And the last time when we have rendered different static assets, also HTML, for the template, we're going to create just a folder called template. And inside template, we'll have form app. And inside form app, we'll have different HTML files. So that's going to be inside our form app. So form_app. And the file, I'm going to call it home.html, or you can call it index.html. I'm trying to do things a little bit differently each lesson to show you that a lot of things are possible and to not only stick with one thing. All right, so this is the home view. So let me just maybe add a quick comment here. This is the home page view function. The next function that I want to create is the contact view. That's going to handle the contact form essentially. So that's very important indeed. I'm going to call this function contact_view. And again, it's going to take request. And here, the first thing that I want to do in that function is to check out if the request method is post in order to identify the form submissions. So I'm going to say if request.method is equal to post. In this case, I'm going to instantiate the form with the submitted post data. So that's going to take the contact form class, and here is the request.post, and I'm going to save that in a variable called form. So that's going to be our form. Again, I'm checking if the request method is post method, and if that's the case, I'm creating a form object by instantiating the contact form class with the submitted post data. And inside that control flow, I want again to validate the form data. So I'm going to check if form.isValid, and this is a built-in method that returns true if the form has no errors or false otherwise. So that's just going to check out if the data is valid. We're going to call the custom send email method defined in our form that we have created. That's going to simulate sending data. We're going actually to take the form and we're going to invoke the send email method. And if all that is good, we're going to redirect the user to the success page upon successful form submission. And for that, I will need to import a complementary method called redirect from Django.shortcuts. You can see here the description of the redirect function. This is simply a built-in method again that redirects the user to any page that you want. So again, if the form is valid, the message is submitted and the email is sent, we're going to redirect the user to a success page. So I'm using the redirect method, and that's essentially going to be our contact success page. We haven't created any HTML pages yet, I know, but that's essentially going to be called contact success. Otherwise, or in other words, if the request method is not post, we're going to create an empty form instance to display. So else, I'm going to create an empty instance or an empty object from that contact form class. And again, I'm going to save that in a variable called form, or assign that in a variable called form. And finally here, I want to render the contact form template with the form instance. So I'm going to render again the request, and the second parameter is the template's name, and that's going to be a page called contact.html. That's going to be the contact form, right? So we're going to, that's called form app. Okay, form_app. That's going to be the folder inside the templates folder that we're going to create in a minute. And inside it, I want to create contact.html. And don't forget to create a context. So the context, of course, is in a form of dictionary. So the context here that we have studied in earlier lessons is going to be a dictionary in a form of key value pairs. So the form is going to be equal to the form, which means that this string called form is going to be equal to whatever the form that we're going to have based on the form data validation. Do not just forget to pass the context here in the render method. Let me just add a quick comment here. So I'm going to say here that this is to define the contact underscore view to handle the contact form. The last thing that I want to do here is I want to define the contact success view. We said that we have 3 pages: the home page, the contact form page, and the third and last one is the success page. So let me add this comment here, define the contact success view function to handle the success page. And this is going to be a very simple function. So I'm gonna call this function contact success view. Again, it's taking request. And here I want to render the contact success template. I'm going to show just a confirmation message that everything is okay. So we're going to render, again, request. I know you know this by heart now. The second parameter is the template name or the HTML page. And that's going to be inside the form underscore app / and I'm gonna call it contact success. All right, this is the third and last function. So one function to handle the contact success view, the other one for the contact form itself, and the first one is just a simple home view. Now let's go to our urls.py file that we have created, and let's actually import from the current directory the views. So I want naturally to define the URL patterns list. And the first path is going to be the root URL, which is going to map to the home view. And that's going to be called when the root page is accessed, of course. So that's the path with the empty route. I want views.home_view to be called, and I will give it a name of home, just home. That's the first path. So the second path is going to be contact, and we're going to just invoke the contact view function, and I'm going to give it a name of contact. And the last and final route is going to be contact / success, and also I'm going to give it a name of what we have just given here. Hold on, contact success. So let me just copy this, and I'm going to give it that name. Right? Contact-success. This name, by the way, is very helpful in things like we have done here. So to redirect the user, instead of writing the full path, you can do like this: return, redirect, and the name, contact success. And the redirect method is going to identify that based on the name given here in that path, that's going to go to the contact / success. Right, let's go now and create our folder. So I want to create a folder. I'm gonna call it templates. Inside templates, I want to create a different one called form_app. And inside form_app, I will create 3 different HTML pages. So the first one is contact_success.html, contact.html, of course, and the main page or the home page is home.html. Moreover, I want to create a folder called static for our static assets. You can put it in the application or in form project itself, doesn't matter. Django, as I told you the last time, is smart enough to identify where is the static folder. So if you want, you can put your static folder on the same level with manage.py file, your application and project folders. All right, so let's go ahead and create here styles. Also, I want to create images, and we won't need any JavaScript. And I've created the logo. I want to put it here in images. That's the logo that I created. Could be your personal logo or any other logo. The next thing, inside styles, I want to create styles.css. And as we're going to render static assets, do not forget to go to settings.py. We will need to go to the bottom of the file, but first, let's go ahead and just import the operating system module because we're going to need it in order to join the base dir with our static folder. And this configuration step is very important. We have discussed it in the last video. So I'm going to create static files underscore dirs, and this is of course a tuple. And here I'm going to take the operating system dot path dot join, and here I want the base dir. And if you remember the last time, I told you to not forget the comma. The comma is very important, and we have got an error last time. So make sure to have the comma right. Now let's go ahead and write some HTML. So the first thing, as we have learned the last time, we need to start by load static. And now we can create our HTML file. Meta character set UTF-8, that's including the basic metadata for the page. You can delete that if you want, doesn't matter. Also, you can delete this, it doesn't matter really. In the title, I want to call this home, and also I want to link the styles.css. So what I'm gonna do is simply, I'm going to write link. In the horizontal reference, I'm going to type curly braces, ampersand, and that's going to be static. And I want the path. The path here is going to be inside styles folder, and the file is called styles.css. Right, in the body, I want a simple div with a class. I'm gonna call it centered content. That's going to be for the styling. And I want the image. The source here is going to be, again, curly braces, ampersand, static. And the path is going to be inside the images folder. The file is called logo, if I'm not mistaken. Images, let's take a look. Yep, logo.png. The next thing, of course, is the form. And the form here is going to have an action. That action, again, is going to be inside curly braces and inside ampersand like this. And that's going to be the URL. And the URL here is the contact. And also the method of that form is going to be a get method. All right, so let's break this down a little bit. So we have the action attribute. This action attribute right here is very important because it's going to use the contact named URL pattern. So from within the form, when you will click on the button, this URL contact is going to be triggered. This contact page that we haven't written yet. That's going to be essentially your Django form. This is the comment in Django template language. It starts with comment in curly braces ampersand and ends with end comment with curly braces ampersand. So yeah, that's very important, guys, to memorize. Whenever you will create the form, you will need to have an action with the URL that's going to be working with the get method essentially to submit the form via this URL query string. And of course, do not forget inside the form, we will need to have a button, and I'm gonna give it a class of btn. Also, I want to give it a type of submit, and the button, let's say, click to enter form. This is our simple HTML page. This is our basic home page, right? With the button, with the logo first, button, and this button is going to take you to the contact URL. So that's it, guys. This is our home page with a simple div with centered content class, with a simple logo, a form that has a button. When clicked, it's going to submit, and it's going to redirect you to the contact URL. All right, by the way, let's go ahead and run our server. Let's do python manage.py run server. And we have our logo, our big logo, and of course, click to enter form. So that's all what we have so far. I'm going to just split the page. This side is going to be the browser, and this side is going to be our code. All right, let's move on. Let's go now and create our contact.html file. The form itself is going to be very simple. Again, I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to add, of course, load static. So we're going to wrap that in curly braces ampersand with spaces, of course. And we'll have this general HTML boilerplate. And here I'm going to call this form contact us. And again, linking the styles.css. So link in the href, I'm having those curly braces. Hope this is clear for you guys. I mean the image. So you can do like that. So inside curly braces, double ampersand, and here is static. And we'll have here styles /styles.css. And that's about right. So for the body, inside the body here, I will have h1 tag, and we'll say here contact us. All right. And if we'll click to enter form, and there we go. We have our contact us that we have just written. So let's change that to contact. Let's refresh, and there we go. The next thing I want to create, of course, is our form. So the form here is going to have post method and not a get method like in the main homepage, this one. Because in the main homepage, when you click, you want to get the URL, which is your contact form that we're writing. And this form, if you remember, that we have created in form.py, that has different fields. It has a name, it has an email and message. All right. So that's essentially that you want to see on the page. So let's get back to contact form and let's move on. So this form is going to be a form tag, of course, and it doesn't have an action. Instead, it has a method, and the method, of course, is a post method because we're submitting form. So inside here, we'll have something that's entirely new. That's called the CSRF token, or cross-site request forgery. These are some malicious attacks that can eventually happen by hackers. So for Django to protect us from those kind of malicious attack, we will have a CSRF token. And that's going to tell Django, hey, I want you to prevent the cross-site request forgery attacks by embedding this unique token. The next thing is I want to render the form fields. How to render the form fields? Well, in form, there is a method called as_p. This is going to render the form fields using this as_p method. This is a method that simply is going to wrap each field in a paragraph text. It's going to provide a simple structure. Next, I want to create a button. This button is going to have a type of submit. And simply here you can say submit. And of course, the button is going to be used for sending the form data. And that's it, guys. This is our simple form. Hit Control S. Let's go and hit click to enter form. And there we go. Take a look at that. This is our form that we've just created using this form.as_p. That's why I told you it's very, very handy. And we have already created our contact form class in form.py. And you see that Django is really structuring everything very easily for you to just concentrate on the most important part and leave the connection between pages and forms to Django. Now, let me show you. If we will type in name, let's say John, let's say email, for example, J, let's say, for instance, J, whatever. I know that's not a correct email. And I will say this is a message. And when I will click on submit, take a look here. This is form validation. It tells me that please include an @ in the email address. This JAS, whatever that I have wrote, is missing an @ sign. So let's correct that. Let's say john@bekbrace.com, submit, and it has redirected me to this page because we haven't created the success page yet. So let's go ahead and work on that, the contact success page. Again, I will type load static, and I need a boilerplate. I don't need those lines. Here I will say success page. Let's just make this a little bit smaller. And again, I want link, and inside the horizontal reference again, curly braces, ampersand, static. And here inside the styles folder, I want to go to styles file. For the body, I want just the h1 tag, say here success. Then we'll have a paragraph, say your contact message has been successfully sent. We will be in touch soon. Just to give it a formal professional look. And the last thing that I want to do is I want just a link, an anchor to take me from the success page to home page again, to this one. So that's going to be inside the horizontal reference again, curly braces, ampersand, URL. Don't forget about the spaces, and that's going to be home. Let me just double check. We have defined that in our URLs as home, correct? So let's get back to our contact success, and let's write here back to home page. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's just refresh. Let's click on click to enter form. All right, awesome. And we're going to change the styling quickly to give it a better look. So contact us name is Robert, email robert@mail.com, and Django is great, for example. That's the message. Now let's submit. And we are back. There is something not right here because we should see the success page. However, the route is correct. Okay, so that's good. Let's debug this. The route is correct, so contact success, but the actual page is not being well rendered. So let's actually take a look. Let's see in the URLs. All right. So let's check out. So this is home view. That's okay. Contact view. That's also okay. And now I see the error. The contact/success shouldn't redirect us to home_view. This is not the correct method. The correct method for the success page, let's check out views.py, is contact success view. Let's copy that. Let's get back to URLs and let's substitute the home view with contact success view. And now everything should work as expected. Let's go ahead and retry. Let's say Nancy this time, nancy@bek.com, Django is great. And let's submit. And there we go. Now we have our success page. Your contact message has been successfully sent. We'll be in touch soon. Back to home page. Let's click on that and we are redirected to our home page. That was a little bit of debugging. It's very important to know how to spot the errors and debug your code. It's very important to know the structure of your code in order to be able to debug your code whenever something crashes. All right, guys, so the basic functionality is working for our form. All right, let's go ahead and work on the CSS, and that's going to be the last thing that we're going to do today. All right, so let's go for the body first. So font family, I'm going to make it Arial. Also, let's give it background color, F9, 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 this ivory color. Also the font color, 333. Also, I want to give it a margin of 0. Also, the padding, we're going to give it 20 pixels. And the overflow, let's make it hidden for the scrolling. Also, let's target the button. Also, let's change the color. Let's make it FFF, which is very close to the background color. And for the padding, I'm gonna give it 10 pixels top and bottom and 20 pixels right and left. For the border, we're gonna make it none. Let's give it some radius, some roundness to the edges. Border radius, let's give it just 5 pixels. And for the cursor, I want to change it to be pointer, right? Let's just refresh. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, and the button here also has been changed and the background here has been changed. All right, let's move on. Let's do some hovering. Let's do button with the hover. I'm gonna give it background color with a different degree of blue. 357 AB8. All right. Let's finish with the home page first. So I'm going to start by the home page to be very specific with the home page styling. So I want, that was called the centered content, I believe. Let's check out. Centered content. Yep, that's right. Let's just copy that. That's the centered content class. And we will have here height. And the height, I'm gonna give it 100 VH. All right, the display is going to be flex. Flex direction is column. Also justify content to the center and align items also to the center. Let's just do like that, and awesome. Everything is being centered and in the middle of the page. Let's work on the button. I want just a couple of things. I want to increase the font size to be 16 pixels, and I want to remove the outline. As far as the logo is concerned, let's check out for our HTML page. Here for the logo, I haven't actually created a class. So let's actually create a class here. So that's going to be a class, and let's give it a name of just logo. All right, so I want for the logo class to have a width of 13%. Let's see how it looks like. Okay. All right, we're going to change that a little bit. So the max width here is 600 pixels. Also, the display is going to be block. And finally, I want the margin 0 auto 20 pixels. And I think that looks good. Now for the form styling, the main form here will have maximum width of 400 pixels. Next, I want margin 0 auto. Let's have border 1 pixel, solid triple F. Just to refresh. Okay, that's better. Also the border radius, let's give it some roundness again, border radius, and let's make it 5 pixels. Maybe increase it a little bit, 10 pixels. All right, that looks about right. Next, I have the label. So for the label, we're going to make the font weight bold. So for the input, now for the input, we have two different inputs, right? We have two inputs and one text area. So I'm going to define which input exactly I want. Input with type of text. So that's the first one. And the second one is email. So this is the second one. And also we have the text area. So for the text area, we're going to have a width of 100%. Also we'll have padding for 8 pixels. Let's have margin 10 pixels, 0 and 20 pixels. Also let's have border radius. That's gonna be 5 pixels. Also let's make the box sizing border box. And that's basically it. Let's just refresh, and that looks better. Let's work on the border. So let me add here border. Let's do 1 pixel solid, and let's do triple F. Let's make it triple D. That's okay. Let's save, and that looks much better. So let me just add anything. Let's say Robert. Let's say Robert at john.com. Message. All right. Submit. Okay, now let's work on that. All right, so we don't have classes, so maybe we can just trap everything here around a class. So let's call this success message, and let's just do like that. All right, success hyphen message. That's going to have here text aligned to the center, right? Also, let's give max width for 400 pixels. Also, let's have a margin of 0 auto. Let's have a background color. Well, the background color, we can keep it as it is to have only one color, one style. For the border, I'm gonna make it 1 pixel, solid and triple D. Also, let's do border radius. Let's give it 5 pixels. Let's also do box shadow, 0, 4 pixels, 8 pixels, RGBA, again 0, 0, 0, 0.1. And let's give it some padding, 20 pixels. Also for the paragraph, success message with the paragraph, there is just margin 20 pixels, 0. All right, that looks awesome. One more thing, I wanted those h1 tags to be in this blue color. I don't know why, nothing has changed. Maybe I haven't done that. I haven't done that actually. Okay, let's do h1 tag for A9, this one. Let's get back here, hello world, submit. Also, I want for the anchors to remove text decoration. So text decoration is set to none. And also, let's give him the same color, this for A90 E2. Let's do it like that. And that looks much, much better. All right, guys, so this is our Django form. Click to enter the form. Let's just write here, henry@mail.com. Please contact me as soon as possible. And let's submit here. And we have the success message. Your contact message has been successfully sent. We will be in touch soon. Back to home page, and we redirected to the home page. All right, guys, so this is the end of this tutorial working with forms in Django. In the next video, we are going to have an introduction to Django authentication system. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.